Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome everyone to episode 44 of Instigate Success, building an ABA franchise. I am Jake. I'll be your host again for this week. And we got a bunch of stuff we went over last week. We'll be recapping a lot of that and some stuff going on tomorrow, which we've mentioned, but we'll jump into all of that. Again, thank you everyone who is joining. And you can always catch us Friday nights at 9 p.m. for the Instigate Success podcast. And it is on our Patreon live every week. And then it will be uploaded on the YouTube channel shortly after, typically the next day, unless there's anything special with the announcements, and that has us put it off for a little bit longer. But we'll jump into Instigators off-season news. We've mentioned this a few times in the past. We are still looking for a head coach. So if you or anybody you know would be interested in potentially coaching a professional basketball team, we would definitely be interested in talking with them, taking a look at what they have to offer. Again, you can fill out that form at that link, the apexsports.com / contact -8. That form is also for prospective players as well that are interested in receiving more information about the team, any kind of upcoming tryouts or things like that we would have. But again, if you or anybody you know would be interested in potentially coaching the Instigators, we are still currently looking for a head coach. And we actually have games coming up in not too long, like a couple of weeks, I think. Maybe a little bit more than a couple of weeks, but I think sometime in June, so less than a month away, we will be starting games in the IBL. We mentioned that in the past couple of weeks. We are going to be joining the IBL for some extra league play this summer before we go into the ABA season for our second season. But we will be looking for another coach as Frosty, aka Corey Kern, stepped down from his role as head coach following the first season. And we saw a pretty nice end to the first season, and we're hoping to keep some of our key guys from that first season, and hopefully build around that. And a big part of that is going to be kind of the culture we can set. And we would really like to get a coach set up to have more time than we had last off season to kind of build that culture within the team. So that way, once we get into the ABA season, that culture is pretty much already set. We have a good idea of what the rotation is going to be for players, and hopefully have a larger rotation as well. Figuring out all of the pros, like the pluses and minuses for all the players, so we can get that rotation a little bit bigger than what we had this year. I know I mentioned it off the bat, but we do have some more tryouts. That's actually tomorrow at 1 p.m. So not too long from now, we should be streaming our first tryouts of the off season for season 2 of the ABA season for the Hoosier State Instigators. And this is done with the IBL as well. So they also announced that they're going to be joining the ABA in some capacity for the upcoming season. I believe as of right now, it looks like they're going to be like a fill-in exhibition type team. But I know they are still looking to see if they could get sponsors to cover the remaining fees to join as a team, such as we are, or many of the other teams we faced, where they would be competing within the division for a playoff spot. But as of right now, it does look like they're going to be kind of like a fill-in team. So if there's any kind of scheduling holes in the schedule, they would be a team that fills in for any of the other ABA teams within our division. And we are doing that tryout at the Crossroads Community Church. That is their home venue. That's also the venue that we used as our home court for the first play-in game. If you remember that, against the Indiana Legends. And we also used the Crossroads Community Church as well for our tryouts last year and our exhibition game against the Shuckers. Again, that is with the IBL, the IBL Shuckers. Um, that was their team, and we saw the IBL has plenty of talent. We've got some of our key players from the IBL, either former IBL players or guys that were actually on the Shuckers and played against us. The one that always stands out is Lawan Swish Whitney. When we played against the Shuckers, he was not on the Hoosier State Instigators at that time. He was still on the IBL team, and he pretty much just lit us up, and it was to the point where we wanted to see if we could get him to join the team. And luckily, we were able to get him to join the team for the first season of the Instigators ABA play. And I think he joined like the second or the third week. But we saw Lawan wound up being our leading 3-point shooter throughout the season with about a 50% shooting percentage from beyond the arc on the whole season. He does have that record um, for the Instigators as far as the stats go for pretty much every kind of 3-point statistic category. Most 3 points made, most 3 points attempted, highest field goal percentage from beyond the arc, and pretty much anything else you could think of with 3-pointers. He does have the records for that. But I know some of our other guys have played in the IBL or IBL tournaments in the past, such as like Chuck and Joe. And those guys were great additions as well to the team. Joe being our first player that we signed to the Instigators in history. Again, with this tryout, we'll have hopefully we'll be able to have a first player signed in season 2 as well. Maybe hopefully sometime coming in the future. But we do hope to get some of the guys back from last year as well. We had that player evaluation form that was filled out by fan voters. Anybody that is a fan voter or higher on the Patreon, that is the $10 tier, was able to fill out that survey and give their input on the first season. And we sat down as owners, myself and the other owners, and looked over that to determine, which guys we want to bring back going into this upcoming season, as well as possibly some areas we could improve. And we also use that for some input into the coaching head search as well, to see which direction people would like us to go with that head coaching. But again, we'll have more input for anybody that's a fan voter or higher throughout the offseason. And we will be likely doing something with the tryouts to get an opinion of which guys kind of stood out to our fans as we make the decisions on the player personnel going into the offseason. But not only is this an opportunity to try out for the ABA roster, it's also an opportunity to try out for that roster for when we go to IBL play beginning in June. And that is also going to help us going into our second season of the ABA as we look to build more of that chemistry within the team. If we can have them kind of, play as a team throughout the whole summer, and then once we get to the fall, I think we'll have again more of that chemistry that we were looking for going into the season. And we're definitely off on a better start than we were last season. I don't know if we really expected to get everything progressed as fast as we did last year, but we were able to get the season everything squared away with that and have a team on the court. And we wound up playing pretty well. But this year we are looking to take it even a step further, and hopefully we'll actually have almost kind of like a dilemma where we would hopefully or ideally have too many players on the roster entering the season, in which we would actually have to cut down on the roster. Um, But that is, again, that's ideally what we would be looking to do. And the first opportunity new players will have is at this tryout tomorrow. Again, that is not too far away as far as the time goes, and we should be streaming that here on the Patreon. I don't think we're going to be posting that publicly just because that. The knowledge behind the tryouts, I think we are going to keep more so to people within the Patreon, our fans, and people like that within our community. So there's less of a scouting report as far as it goes going against the Instigators. Um, but again, we will have that live tomorrow. And I think that's going to be our first time using our new cameras. We mentioned that last week. We had Corey on here. He was going over some of our big news uh, in the off season that we just hit. And the new cameras are actually like AI powered cameras, and they're able to stream in 4K quality, and it has a bunch of cool features with it. But it does have like ball tracking, player tracking. The cool thing, like I said, it is AI, so we'll actually have more people be able to do some of the other things that we weren't able to do last season with our streams, as far as like once we get into the game streams. I think the first couple of streams we're going to kind of try to fine tune stuff, see the features that we can and can't do, and what works, I guess. But the cool thing is it does have the AI. So, shout out to Ronan. He did an amazing job in the first season as the cameraman, but it does open up the door so he can help out with some of the other stuff during game times now. And with Frosty going to be not on the sideline as a coach, he's actually going to open up the door for some more opportunities to improve our broadcasting as well. I know we've talked about a few different things that we are looking to do as far as broadcasting goes, but hopefully we'll have at least one person on site to help give commentary and keep us updated throughout the games. We did notice that helped a lot with some of our live game broadcasts. For the games that I was able to make it out in person, it helped with situations such as like technical fouls, where you're watching remotely. Uh, Myself being in Florida, or Spacely being out in St. Louis, I do believe. Um, we weren't physically at the venue, so we were just going off of the camera that we saw here on the screen, the same as the screen that anybody else who was watching the stream had. So we kind of had to infer some of the things, but when you had somebody on site at the venue, you can kind of interact with the players and the referees, even the coaches as well, when you're there physically, and you can get some more explanation and have a better idea of what's going on. The other thing is like the 3D rule. Sometimes we'll miss that as well, but you can see the 3D light go on as well when you're at the venue. Um, but yeah, I'd say that the fouls especially are the one thing that was a little bit hard to call remotely, because it's difficult to tell, like, if it's a sometimes if it's a shooting foul, if it's an off ball foul, and then especially once we got into those technicals, sometimes there would be multiple technicals called, and there would be like 5 shots, free throws in a row, without real without a real explanation of knowing what was going on there. But again, this is going to be, I think, our first time using these new 4K AI powered cameras, and I'm really looking forward to it. I know I've done a lot of like the behind the scenes work with the streaming, and I think this is really going to help us out, and kind of take our streams up to the next level when it comes to that professional looking broadcast. And the other thing, we mentioned this last week as well, is it does cut its own highlights as well, and I'm really looking forward to that, because that was one thing I know we've struggled with in the off season, is we're looking to cut highlights from the games that we had last year, um, but it's just extremely difficult and time consuming. The camera that we had last year shot in 720, and it didn't always have the best connection. And some of the games we did lose the connection throughout the game, so you kind of have to throw away some of that footage. And then like I guess the angle and the proportions of it as well. It's kind of just like an overall view, and it doesn't really we didn't really like zoom in, zoom out, and focus on players as much. We kind of just focused on the overall game, make sure we covered all the things that we needed to uh, follow the game. The scoring, turnovers, anything like that, as well as keeping track of statistics once we rewatch the stuff. um, but these new cameras are going to be able to track the players as well. And I know there's a bunch of like features that we're going to have to explore. I know there's like the stat keeping, hot zones, all those type of cool features that we're going to explore throughout the hopefully this these tryouts and the IBL season as well. And kind of fine tune that before we jump into the ABA season. But I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully, we can get some more highlights put out going into the season. I know our shorts on YouTube have been some of our highest hitting videos. I think we've got like, uh, 13, 15,000 on a couple of those, compared to most of our stuff that we put out on YouTube. As far as games are in the hundreds, so that's a big difference, and we would really like to expand on that, kind of expand our brand as well by doing that. Um, but again, registration, if you're a player and you're thinking about it, go ahead and sign up now. Because if you sign up now and you sign up online at that link, you can either go on that website or scan the QR code. And we've got this posted on pretty much all of our social media. I know it's over on Facebook and Instagram, but you can scan the QR code as well. That'll get you a direct link. Sign up ahead of time. It's $60 if you do the registration online. If you come to the venue and sign up at the venue, again, that's the Crossroads Community Church in Bedford, Indiana. It is a little bit more expensive. It's going to be $75. So save yourself the $15 and sign up online ahead of time. And go out there and ball out, have an opportunity to sign with a professional basketball team. Again, this is an opportunity not only for the Hoosier State Instigators, but you also have an opportunity with the IBL as well. And there's two sides to that. So you have an opportunity, if you make it on the Instigators, to possibly play for our team when we're in the IBL. And you also have an opportunity, if you don't get selected for our team, you could also be selected by the IBL to play for one of their teams as well, whether that's for the IBL play or if that's for the IBL's Shockers, the Indiana Shockers, when they join the ABA. So a bunch of opportunities for any players out there tomorrow at 1 p.m. Again, that's 1 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, Saturday, May 18th, in Bedford, Indiana, at the Crossroads Community Church. I'm really looking forward to that. I think we're really that's gonna be our first step into the second season, and I'm hoping that keeps our um, streams, it kicks it up to the next level. Um, but the other thing, I mentioned that we are playing in the IBL. That is going to start in June. Again, that is only a few weeks away. And those games we will be streaming live as well. And we will be, again, using those kind of as experimental game streaming, and trying to fine tune our broadcast. Again, we're looking to make it look a little bit more professional going into the second season, but we're going to definitely play with some of the tools that we have at our disposal on those new cameras and try to fine tune all of those features and skills once we go into the IBO play, and hopefully we'll have everything squared away once we get into the ABA season. But again, this is a really cool opportunity for not only us, but for the fans to watch the Instigators play a little bit more basketball. You don't have to wait all the way to the fall to see the Instigators back on the court. We are going to have some of our key players returning from season one to play in this IBL, um, as well as hopefully some of the guys in the tryout tomorrow. If we can get them signed and they seem to be a good fit with the team. We would like to add them to our roster for the IBL. And again, it's a lot about building that team chemistry. That is our main goal with this uh, joining the IBL throughout the summer is to build that team chemistry. So once we get back into the ABA season, that we have that team chemistry that we were kind of lacking in the first half of the season, and kind of built in the second half. So we can have that all the way throughout the season this year. But again, it's a cool opportunity because not only are the Instigators playing in the IBL, they're also going to be in the championship game. So, because the Instigators are a professional team and the IBL is a pro am league, we have agreed, and they actually agreed to this as well, that there would be a tournament and the final playoff game is going to be between the best team in the IBL. They're going to do an elimination like bracket type of thing, and the best team will match up against the Instigators in the final game. And again, whoever wins that game is the champion of the IBL Pro Am League. So there's an opportunity there for an IBL team to face off against us, not only in the regular season, but it'll be for the championship game as well. It's a pretty cool thing that we've agreed upon to have our team locked into that championship, being that we are technically a professional team, and a lot of these other teams are mostly amateurs, and so it'll be an opportunity not only for our guys to show out, but for some of these other guys. And I think this will also give us kind of maybe a bigger player pool as well. If we don't quite fill out that roster before that point, maybe we'll have some more guys that we see we could reach out to from this play, IBL play, um, before we go into the second season. Again, remember we had a bunch of guys that came over from the IBL, so definitely quality players that are in the IBL. But we are looking forward to that. Again, that is going to be in June, I believe. We're going to be starting that, so a few weeks away. And the tryouts tomorrow give you an opportunity to play with the Instigators in the IBL as well as the ABA. That was our second big announcement from last week. We also had the other really big announcement that we are moving to Fishers, Indiana, and venue is still going to be announced in the future. We don't have the venue official announcement quite yet, but we are working, getting closer to that. Um, but again, that's TBD at this point, and we'll announce that hopefully soon. Um, but it's obviously going to be before the fall. Probably, I'm thinking sometime over the summer we'll have that announcement. But we are playing in Fishers, Indiana. Again, thank you to Clinton, Indiana, for being our season one hometown. The inaugural season venue, the Clinton CRC. Again, thank you to them and everybody in Clinton. It was a great experience, to have that as our home venue for the first season. Again, it was a really like historic looking building. When you think of like an old school basketball court, has the brick building, the hardwood, the wood benches, and it was just kind of what you expected, like from an old school kind of basketball feel. It was a great venue, but we are looking to expand it. And again, a lot of it has to do with just the potential opportunities that we have to grow with the Hoosier State Instigators brand. We feel it's going to be best for the Instigators to relocate to Fishers, Indiana, and we are looking to make this the permanent home for the Hoosier State Instigators. And luckily, we did name ourselves Hoosier State and not a specific city, so we are able to play within Indiana. So that also worked in our favor. But again, thank you to Clinton. Again, nothing but love to that city. But we do believe it is going to be in our best interest to move to Fishers. And the other part of that announcement, we also announced last week, we signed a deal with an advertising agency. They will be doing some of our sponsorships going into the next season. And this is also a huge thing for me as well as the other owners. All of us have full time jobs, and we do this as well. So this is not our only job. We have full time jobs in addition to this. So it opens up a lot of opportunities that we may not have been able to reach out to because of that. And we have somebody that is going to be working on these sponsorships strictly on you know their own time, and that helps out a lot because that is one thing we kind of looking back we hopefully can improve on this year is our sponsorships. We had a handful of great sponsors last year. Obviously, SDMC, the Adventure Beer Company, Diamond House International. We had the partnership with FCSE as well. And if I'm forgetting anybody, I definitely apologize. But those are the ones that I know off the top of my head. Um, but we had great partnerships and sponsorships throughout our first season. We're looking to build that and continue to make even more partnerships and sponsorships going into the next season. Um, and that is going to help with that. They're going to do a lot of like the official, whatever sponsor of the Hoosier State Instigators. Kind of like we had the Adventure Beer Company was the official hangout with the Gator Pit. Um, for all of the games to watch for our first season. So they will be helping out a lot with that. And that gives us some more time to focus on some of the other things, such as like the streaming, building more of the social presence. We're looking to continue to build going into the second season, and that is really going to help us out. But Fishers, Indiana, that is the big news going into season two. Again, we are still talking with a couple of venues, and the announcement will be probably sometime over the summer as far as the official venue. Um, but that's the biggest news that we've had in quite some time, and we actually announced that here on Instigate Success last week before we announced it publicly. So again, you can always tune in here to get the knowledge sometimes before we have it posted publicly, as well as the Patreon. We did put up something on the Patreon as well that we would be looking for possibly a new place to play at. And that's also another great way to keep up to date with all of our stuff is to join our Patreon. And I know we posted it just on, I think just today, over on our Facebook, with some of our links to keep updated throughout the off season. So we have links for our Patreon as well as our YouTube channel. If you want to go back and rewatch some of our games, any of these streams that you've missed, and our Discord. You can jump in the Discord as well. Our owners are over there, including myself, and you can always ask questions. Give us some recommendations as far as what you're looking to see in the Instigators and the AAC as a whole. And we're always able to be reached through there as well. But so if you're like me, Fishers, Indiana, sounds great. And I live in Florida. I'm not from Indiana. I don't live in Indiana. So from an outsider's perspective, what exactly does that mean? So I put together a few things from Google to kind of help explain the move, just from like a basic point to compare it from Clinton to Fishers to see exactly where our mind was in this move. I know we've got a couple of guys that are local to Indiana, Frosty being one. He is local to Fishers, as well as Ronan. He is local to Indiana as well. So we do have two owners that are within the state, and they are able to give a more firsthand perspective. But from an outsider perspective, I just use Google That's typically the easiest way to just look over these type of things and do the research that way. So from that perspective, you just Google search Clinton and Fishers, Indiana. Here's a couple of things that pop up. So you can see there for Clinton, Indiana, and the weekly shut off of the headphones. But you can see there for Clinton, Indiana, the population there is just under 5,000 people. And if you look at it, gives you, I don't know why, but Google for some reason when you search the cities, it does the 2010 census and then it does the population from 2022. Not really sure why, but that's the numbers they give. So you can see that it's pretty much about the same from 2010 to 2022. um, maybe a little bit less than it was in 2010, but pretty much around that 5,000 number. And then there's just like a super zoomed in image as well of the city from a map perspective. And then you search Fishers, Indiana, and you get this same type of thing there. You can see in 2010 they had almost 77,000 people. And then they jumped up to 95,000 in 2019, and there are over 100,000 people now, going off of the latest numbers they have for 2022. So that is a huge difference. 95,000 people as far as the city population. So when you look into that, that's a much bigger outreach as far as the community that we can hit going into this next season. Again, that is one of the key factors making this decision. Um, it's going to help with some of the community things that we do as well. It opens our doors to a little bit more of a bigger population. And as far as like the geography type of thing, so here's the distance and the time between the two. And this is kind of zoomed in, so it's just like within Indiana. But you can see Clinton over there is on the west side of Indiana. Fishers is a little bit north of Indianapolis and a little bit to the east, but it's a little bit less than 2 hours, um, about 100 or so miles away from each other. But that's a little bit of like a geographical perspective from somebody from the outside that doesn't live in Indiana. Um, and you can see that where that lies within the cities. And you can see um, almost like in the middle there, in between Clinton and Indianapolis, you can see Greencastle. I believe that is where the Legends play, if I'm not mistaken. Um, So that would be kind of like, another thing you could look at compared to where other teams are playing. And then Indianapolis, we do know that the Lions, they play in Indianapolis, like the Danville region, which is actually a little bit left, a little bit to the west of Indianapolis as well. You can see that, like almost that corner of the one direction right there is Danville. Um, but just to give a little bit of an idea of like geographical perspective of where they lie against some of the other teams in the region. But we did get approval from the ABA. They said that Fisher's location would not be competing against the Lions or the Legends. Um, the Indianapolis area is a big enough area that it's going to not draw within itself. It's going to draw within um, the different communities of the Indianapolis region. But yeah, so it's about 2 hours or so, a little bit less, as far as the difference between where we are going. And it's actually a little bit of a better move when it comes to players, because we had more players in the Indianapolis region. And hopefully that'll help with our player retention as well as player recruitment going into the second season, with our location being a little bit closer to Indianapolis. And then for people like me who have to travel to the games, sometimes I would drive, but you can also fly. and Indianapolis is the closest airport to both of these locations. I did also fly into Chicago the one time, but there's a time zone difference and it makes it confusing. So I would say Indianapolis was the closest for the two areas. And you can see our new location, Fishers. Again, this is just Fishers, the city. This is not the actual venue. I'm not going to be, leaking the venue by using Google Maps. But I just did the cities, Fishers and Clinton. But again, to Fishers, it's about 30 or so minutes, about 30 miles from the airport to Fishers. That's pretty close. And to Clinton, I think was about an hour and a half, hour 40 minutes, if I remember. So it cuts down about an hour of travel for anybody that's looking to travel in via airport and drive to or catch a ride out to a game. It also is closer to Ohio, so anybody that would be over in Ohio, it's closer to the east side, and I'm from Pennsylvania, so it's also closer to Pennsylvania as well. Um, but yeah, so it's a pretty big move. Again, I think the biggest numbers there is that population difference from an outsider's perspective. Um, that I think is going to be one of the key factors going into the season. Not only does it open more eyes potentially with fans, but it can help us grow into a bigger community. And we hope that also helps with some of the sponsorships as well. Um, the more people in the city, typically the more businesses, and typically the more you're able to get sponsorships and build connections within the city. So I think this is going to be a huge step in the right direction next year, going into season two. Um, but again, the tryouts tomorrow are not in Fishers. Again, we don't have a venue yet in Fishers, but we will be having a venue in Fishers once we get to the second season of our ABA play. But yeah, that was just kind of like the quick Google search information that gives you some idea. Obviously, you can go and Google search it as well. If you want to get some more details, break it down. There's a ton of information that you can digest at your disposal if you just Google search two cities and see kind of the differences between the two. But I think that was the major announcement from last week that we went over in great detail. The other thing is amateur night will be coming shortly. I think our plan is to do it this Monday coming up. Um, Again, I think that's the plan tentatively. If not, then it would be the following Monday. But we still have to kind of fine tune some of the smaller details, make sure we get time scheduled up. But it's going to be Monday nights again, time I think is tentative at this point. That's one of the things I think we've got to hammer down as far as uh, one of the major details, I guess, is the exact time we'll be doing that on Monday nights. But I think we're trying to do it this Monday coming up. So stay tuned for that. And if not, then it should be the following Monday. But again, if you have any amateur sports that you play, or people that play that would like their games broadcast on this show, feel free to contact us, and you can reach out to us. Over in the Discord, on our social media, you can send us a message and let us know, like, hey, I have a friend that plays soccer, and they'd love if you showed their games, something like that. As long as that they get consent from whoever, or if you do it, if you play yourself, obviously if you can get consent to record it and share it, we would love to broadcast that as well. But I think so far we've got a couple. I think baseball and lacrosse are the two main ones, but I know there are a couple other ones as well in discussion. So we'll see exactly. I think football might be another one as well. Um, but again, if you or somebody you know is playing the sports. Again, it just no professional sports is basically what the restriction is, and you get consent from people involved in the filming to share the video. It's as simple as that. If you have an idea of something that would fit into that, you can again reach out to us, message us, let us know what you have and what you would like us to show on amateur night. But that's going to be a great thing for us to kind of build some of our skills in the commentary, learn more about sports as well as what a lot of the fans are interested in, and we'll be keeping a close eye on the types of stuff we get submitted, as well as the viewership numbers, depending on the types of sports. And that'll help kind of pinpoint the direction that we go with some of our decisions. Again, because the AAC, we are looking to expand into a multitude of sports. The Hoosier State Instigators are our first sports franchise, and they are our basketball team. But we would like to continue to grow and expand into some other avenues within the sports industry. Um, but I think we're all on the same page. We're not looking to expand too fast that we are not able to grow grow the instigators and what we've been able to establish with the instigators. We're not looking to do anything that would jeopardize that. So we are definitely focusing on the instigators and just kind of prospecting at this point to see which route would possibly be something we could look at in the future. But this is going to help out with that, as well as our broadcasting commentary as well. None of us are professional broadcasters, so this will kind of help us fine tune some of those skills as well, going into our IBL play, as well as the second season of the ABA with the Hoosier State Instigators. And this again will give us some more time to practice that. But I think that is all for the AAC news, all with the Apex Athletic Collective. As far as like some Indiana news, I do know that the Pacers are playing right now. They are still alive in the playoffs. They're facing off against the Knicks, and that is a tight series. The Knicks do have the lead 3-2. So the Pacers have to win this game, otherwise they would face elimination. If they're able to win this game, then I think they play again on Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. And then it would be a winner go home game again for the Pacers. So that they've got to pull off the win tonight and the win on Sunday if they're looking to continue to represent Indiana in the NBA playoffs. Um, and the Indiana Fever, they have just started their season with Caitlin Clark at going first in the draft and having an opportunity to lead the team. Things haven't gone off to quite the best start for that team yet, but they are looking to turn that around as well. But yeah, so that's a little bit of Indiana news as well for the weekend. But again, tomorrow, 1 p.m., if you didn't already see it, I'll pull that graphic up. We have our first tryouts of season 2, 1 p.m., Bedford, Indiana, Crossroads Community Church. It's a joint tryout for the Instigators and the IBL. Again, if you're planning on participating and trying out, register online ahead of time, save yourself $15. Scan the QR code, go to the website, and register. $60 instead of 75. But again, we'll be streaming that tomorrow live on our Patreon, 1 p.m. And that'll be our first look at potentially some new guys for the roster in season 2. I think we will have some of our guys from season 1 helping out at the tryouts as well. So you might see some familiar faces. But this again will be your first look at the Instigators in the second iteration of the Hoosier State Instigators. But until then, it's only going to be a few hours, less than 24 hours But until then, as always, be great and instigate.